Sister Maria Romero. I know when I call your phone, there's Sister Maria Odelia Romero
Right.
is not here. Please leave a message. The mystery for me is Odelia. I've never heard that name before.
Okay. Well, my grandmother had a son who had an eye infection, and for a very long time she prayed that he would be healed. She prayed her rosaries, her novenas, everything, and nothing worked. So she lived in a very small town in New Mexico. So she went all the way to Colorado to see this eye specialist, and he told her there was nothing that he could do. So she decided, well, there must be something. So she went to the pastor of the little mission close by and told him, and cried and told him, this can't be, he's going to lose his eyesight. And the pastor opened up his prayer book and, kind of looked through it and found this prayer to Saint Odelia. But the spelling that he had gave her was Odilia. Anyway, he told her to say this prayer for 9 days and to say her other prayers, but to pray especially for healing. So she did. She went home and dutifully prayed it. And by the 9th day, his eyes were much better, and they eventually cleared up.
My.
All right, so my mother then is pregnant and is expecting me within 3 to 4 months. She happened to be going to my grandmother's house to help her older sister, who was also pregnant and was having twins. So my grandmother asked her to come and help. So all 3 of them were there, and lo and behold, I came before the twins. I was supposed to come after them, but anyway, that's what happened. And my grandmother asked my mother if she could name me Maria Odelia Romero in honor of this saint, who she firmly believed had saved my Uncle Paul's eyesight.
Oh, how beautiful. That is a beautiful story. Yes.
Now, there is a shrine of Saint Odelia someplace in the Midwest, and the spelling is Odilia. And from what I could learn about that saint, she was an Irish saint. And so who would have known that?
Yes,
right?
yes.
But that's why I was named that.
You mentioned your grandmother in New Mexico. Now, I've always been under the impression that you were born in California.
Well, that's because I've lived many years there. But actually, I was born in Roy, New Mexico, one of our missions.
Yes.
My mother happened to be there, like I just told you. And she and my father were living at that time in Gallup, New Mexico. And so I was actually born in Roy. From there, my parents moved to Gallup, lived there for, I think, a year. My father had a contracting job there. And then from there, they moved to Santa Fe for a couple of years. And then my father found a home in Albuquerque. And so we moved there, I think, when I was 4 or 5.
So you were brought up in the beauty of the country, the state of New Mexico.
Yes, very beautiful. A blend of cultures, and that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about New Mexico is we live peaceably among ourselves. The American Indian or the Pueblo Indian, the Hispanic people, the Mexican people, the Caucasian people. There were very, very seldom any squabbles among the cultures. Of course, there were other types of problems, but not that. So,
you must have learned Spanish from the womb on.
Yes, I've heard it before I was born.
Yes.
That's right. But in my first year, first grade, the sisters sent my brother and I home with a note saying that we had to practice our English. So from then on, my mother decided that I had to speak English rather than Spanish. And that's what we did, so that she wanted us to do well in school, and she figured that was the way to do it.
And she became your English teacher, I bet, at home.
Yes, she did. She taught us how to say all the parts. I remember that very night, she sat us down at the supper table and pointed out a spoon and a fork and a knife, and I mean, she
Repeat after me.
That's right. She was a teacher beyond teachers, believe me.
Well, that's where you received your gift of teaching
Yes,
yourself.
I really do believe
Yes.
that. Yes.
Your ministry after you entered was primarily teaching,
Yes,
wasn't it?
yes. The first 10 years of my religious life, I was sent to Joliet. I was there 3 years, and then I was sent to St. Celestine's in Edmund Park, and or Elwood Park, and then from there I was sent to LA to St. Raphael's.
Oh my!
Yes.
So you've
That
traveled
started my California beginnings. I
from
was going
Southern
to-
California and worked your way up.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Please, going back to Albuquerque, when you were in Albuquerque, you had our sisters in school.
Yes, I did.
Who were some of those?
The superior and principal was Sister Mary Lourdes Fitzgerald, and then Sister Edwina Marie and Sister Irene Marie, Sister Rosamond. I had Sister Nolita in 4th grade. In fact, my entire family had Sister Nolita in 4th grade. And we've often laughed about that because we knew exactly what she was going to do. She was very patterned in her teaching. So those are some of the sisters that I had there.
Was Sister Lourdes there at the time?
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
Did you
And-
come to know her good sense of humor?
Yes, we did. I think my mother got to know her better in that respect. We were always somewhat a little bit, how would you say it, not fearful of her, but very careful around her because she would tell us in no uncertain words that we were out of step. She was strict.
I bet your mother was a good cook.
She was a very good cook. She learned from my grandmother, and
Did
she liked to cook. You know, some women cook because they have to cook. My mother cooked because she liked to cook.
Did she ever treat the sisters at the
Oh
convent?
yes, she would oftentimes on Fridays, since we couldn't eat meat, she'd make a special Spanish meal with chili, and they were with eggs in them that they kind of floated on the top, and green and pinto beans and homemade tortillas, and they were all her makings. So it was. Oh, and on occasion we'd throw in a vanilla pudding with bananas and wafers in it. That was my job, was to do that.
For this, you mean for the sisters
Yes,
at the convent?
that's right.
Were they at the front door waiting
Yes,
for
they
you?
were. When she'd call them in the morning and say, "Don't make anything," they were very excited, and they would. You could hear the joy and the laughter, and everybody was looking very hungry at that point. So I'm sure it was a treat.
Well, I don't believe we had a high school there at the time.
No, we didn't. The school went all the way up through 9th grade. So I guess that was considered middle grades at that point. And I had to go to St. Vincent's Academy, which was just about 2 miles away from where I lived. And so I did. That was actually I wanted to go to St. Mary's, which was a co-ed high school, but my mother really wanted me to go to the girls' school because she felt that I would get a better education there. And she won out. I tried all summer to change her mind, but she said no.
St. Vincent sounds like another community.
Yes, Sisters of Charity from Cincinnati.
So the Cincinnati sisters
Yes, yes.
were in.
Yeah, they had several
New Mexico.
places
Oh,
in
my.
New Mexico. Very good teachers, very good. So I received good education there.
Well, how did you decide then in high school having the charity sisters? I mean, you're here, so you
Yes.
must have made connection with someone at that, was it Sacred Heart Convent?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think because I kind of grew up with our sisters, they would often, perhaps unknowingly to the superior, show up at our doorstep on a Saturday morning, and they would ask my mother for either help or something that they wanted her something to do. She was very active in the parish and loved doing things for the sisters. So I grew up seeing them come and go from our kitchen. They would come in the back door and visit. My mother would pour them some coffee, and they would chit-chat and then leave. And we would go to the convent regularly, so...
You felt comfortable
Yes,
with them?
yes.
Yeah.
Now, I likewise had great respect for them, and if they told you you were out of step, you were out of step, whether or not they felt comfortable with us as on a more familiar ground, you know.
We often want to find out who mentored you and who was your, as we said, sponsor, but you probably had the whole convent sponsoring you.
Yes, I actually had somebody else in mind, but Sister Lourdes took over and made sure that my mother made the proper clothes and they got things together for me and so on. So we had at that time 4 women from Sacred Heart that entered. Dolores Maldonado, well, Maria Imada Garcia had already entered, and then Dolores entered. She was 2 years ahead of me, and there was one more, and then myself. And so, of course, she was very proud of that she had.
Was Mother Gerald Berry the prioress at that time?
Oh, yes, very much so. That was 1957.
What was your first connection with her?
Well, my family, I wrote a letter requesting to enter, and I got a response from her to go ahead and fill out the application form, which I did. And part of it was a physical. So I went to my doctor, who was at that time on vacation. So we had this young intern who did the physical, and he wrote me up as having a heart condition because he heard a heart murmur. So that was sent in to
Oh, dear.
Mother Gerald. Of course, the minute she saw that, that was like, that's not going to work. So I got a letter back from her saying that I was not accepted, and my mother was very distressed by that because she said, you're a normal kid, you do everything any other girls do, and you're active. And she said, there's a mistake here. So she sent me back to my family doctor, who then said, oh no, she's just got a heart murmur. There's nothing wrong with, there's no congenital
That wasn't
problem.
unusual.
Yes, and so I sent the forms all the way back again, and she then read them and said, okay, the first time I applied, I wanted to join in June, so this all transpired in the summer, so she accepted me for September. So that was a little bit of a nervous summer for me, because I kept thinking, oh, maybe I'm not going.
But it was a wonderful time for discerning, too.
Yes, it was.
I mean, how determined.
It really clarified whether or not I was doing this seriously or not.
And you became Maria Perpetua.
Maria Perpetua, in honor of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. I had a great devotion as a child to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. They had the Wednesday night devotions.
Yes, of course.
And we went faithfully every week. Some of us did, at least my mother and I did. And so I wrote that down, that I had great devotion to Our Lady of Perpetual Help, so she attached Perpetua to my name. And it turned out to be a terrible mistake, because, not that I didn't appreciate my devotion to Mary, but in teaching, the children can't say that name very well. I got everything from perpetual to Perpetua. I mean, it was really silly in many ways, but it was kind of a funny, happy kind of sound. But I didn't have the name very long, because I received it for reception, and then in 1970, we could go back to our regular name.
So you just had it about 13 years or so.
Yes, that's right.
Now, your second ministry in Adrian, your first was formation.
Yes.
Your second was you were tapped on the shoulder by Sister Rosemary Ferguson to come and work in formation, correct?
Yes, it was. Yes. I was working in a parish in Phoenix, Arizona, actually the west side, and working with religious education, which I had decided to move from Catholic school teaching into RE or CCD work.
What year was that you
That
made
was
it?
1970.
So you really were a pioneer in
Well, yes, the very beginning.
Focusing.
Yes. And
who was responsible for helping you move in that direction.
actually, Sister Jean O'Loughlin was. She was a pioneer in getting us together out west because there were a lot of young sisters out west. And she gathered us together for one weekend as what she called a leadership weekend. And asked us, said, look at the changes in the church and in the world. Where do you want to continue teaching in the Catholic school, or do you desire to do some other kind of work? What do you feel called to? And at that time, I was also not only teaching 5 days a week, but I was teaching CCD on Saturdays and helping the teachers. So I felt that there was a greater need with the religious education programs. And so that's why I chose that. But I was very happy where I was and had a marvelous community. We would get up in the morning at 6:30 and pray together for 45 minutes, and then we'd all go in 5 different directions. And so it came to me very kind of out of the blue. And
You must have loved teaching catechists.
I did. I
Yes.
did love it very much.
Yeah,
But, after coming to see Rosemary and being interviewed by her and some of the council members, and going home and discerning the call with my community, I felt that it was the right thing, so I did.
Did you work with the postulants? Isn't
The
that
candidates?
interesting? And
Yes.
the candidates. They
Yeah.
started calling them candidates.
Candidates, that's right.
That was in the 70s,
Yes,
wasn't
that's
it?
right. I began working with them in 1976.
And perhaps there was a whole new way of formation at that time.
Yes, there was. Yes. I think they had tried, Sarah and Katie McGrail had tried a variety of ways to, how would you say it?
Restructure.
Restructure, renew the formation program. And then when Sister Teresa Dish and I came in, she asked us to do a very different approach. So we brought the candidates back into Adrian, and they lived in individual communities.
Here on campus.
Here on campus. And then once a week, they came together for one day and had a formation day. But we also did other things during the week as a group. So I think the benefit of that move was that they formed a little community among themselves, whereas before they were scattered throughout the Detroit area and really didn't know each other. And therefore it was hard to share their lives with one another. And
who are some of the candidates that are still with us?
In the first year, there were 5 candidates. Who is still with us is Kitty Bethay, Phyllis Sikora, and Marie Michael. Barbara Wall left, and so did Scotty Hagerman. And then the second group, it was Maureen O'Connell. That is the only one left out of 6. The first year, during the candidate year, 3 of them went home shortly after joining. And I think it was the right decision for them. They discerned that they came to see and they realized this was not for them. And then in the third group, it would be Judy Rimby, Corinne Sanders, Doris Fournier, and a very nice young lady from, is it Petersburg? Or, yeah, something like that. Those 4 made profession. And today, there's just Judy and Corinne. And then the last group, Marianne Fallmans, the last of the 6. She's the only one that stayed.
Well,
so there's 7 of them out of the 25 that
and
entered.
a remarkable group of 7.
Yes,
we must
very
say.
much so.
We must say.
Yes, that's right.
So that was your second time in Adrian. And then the third time, you came from California.
Right.
On a sabbatical, I understand.
That's right. I was in the middle of my sabbatical year, and I came down with pneumonia and ended up having to have blood transfusions. I was actually in Phoenix at that time, visiting friends. And once I got enough health back to travel back to Adrian, I came back here and I received the treatment that I needed. But I was also not happy about not having anything to do. So I would volunteer in the information, I guess, office. I don't know what they call it then.
Secretarial.
But, yeah, secretarial, stuffing envelopes and doing things like that. And I was going a little bit crazy just doing that. So I finally one day said to Corinne, who I was living with in the formation house, I said, I need something more to do. I need something that will really challenge me. And she said, you know, there are some other ministries. Well, no, very shortly afterwards, she came home and told me that Catherine O'Malley, wasn't it? Catherine O'Malley.
Margaret O'Malley.
Margaret O'Malley had resigned as the director of liturgy. And she said, why don't you offer your services to Barbara Rund? Because you like liturgy and you've worked with liturgy. And I said, well, yes, I could do that. I could be an assistant or a volunteer. So I pulled out my resume and marched over to a sister's office and sat down and told her what I had done. And I said, I understand you're kind of without a director. So, and it was right before Advent, which is a big church season that we really like to prepare for. And she said, well, let me see your resume. And she looked at it and she said, well, when can you start? And I said, what? And she said, when can you start? I said, well, no, I really just wanted to assist. Well, you could assist by taking on the role and I'll help you. Don't worry, I'll be there. So she took me down to Human Resources. They took my picture, wrote up a paragraph, and before I even got home, I was the director, and I was like, okay, God, I know what you're saying.
What did I just do?
Yeah. I think I wanted it too much or something. I don't know. But anyway.
Where were the liturgy offices at that time?
In Roncalli.
Oh.
And the very first floor, I guess.
And Father Rowland was with us,
that's right. And Father George.
Oh, right.
And Tom, I always forget Tom's name. He was our music director, wonderful man, great man.
He's died since, you know.
He has. He died of heart attack.
Was
overnight.
Greg Shearer part of the group?
Greg Shearer was part of it. And so there were the three men and myself and Barbara.
Well, no wonder you were such a big help during chapter with the liturgies at Holy Rosary.
Oh, yes.
Providential that you were here.
That's right.
So how long did you volunteer for the liturgy department?
I actually volunteered until they found a director. And she started, I think, I started in November of 2015. No, would have been 2002. And I was there till the following July. And then they hired Sister Marilyn, I believe that was her name, who then became the director of liturgy. And then she no sooner got into the position, and of course I backed off and just volunteered to assist her in any way, but she discovered she needed hip replacement surgery. So she went back to her mother house to have it. And so Barbara called me and said, I think I need you back into the office. So I went back and served for another 2-3 months.
Oh, God bless you. And then you went for reprieve.
I did, yes.
To California.
Well, then I got the approval of my doctor that I could at least work 20 hours a week.
Beautiful.
Because the disease that I had, which is lupus nephritis, drained all my energies tremendously. I had to have some chemo, and I had to have blood infusions on a regular basis. But you know, she told me when I was diagnosed, she said, "You'll come through this. We'll make sure that you do." She said, "But it will take time." So
very positive.
Yeah, she was very positive. So once I got the approval from the doctor, then I started looking into going to California and looking for a position. And that's when I ended up going to Santa Cruz and working at Holy Cross, which has always been one of our sisters' parishes.
Yeah.
And we had a big high school there. Many vocations came from that parish.
So you were in Los Angeles, Santa Cruz.
I went 4
Hayward,
years to
was it?
Berkeley.
Okay.
Yes. I had 1 year in Larkspur with Mary Jo O'Hanlon
Oh my.
and 4 other sisters. And let's see. Oh, Hayward was my first position after receiving my Master's of Divinity in Berkeley. I applied for a position there as a pastoral associate.
Where were you before you came for the fourth time to Adrian?
I was in Monterey, California, where I was working as a pastoral associate in not in Santa Cruz, in Monterey for 9 years.
Now, you're currently residing in Maria.
Yes, I am.
Yes. And what history brought you this far?
Okay, I had open heart surgery June 4th because I had what they called calcified mitral valve. My mitral valve, instead of opening properly to let the blood flow properly,
Was that
closed.
last year?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
June 4th.
Yeah. June 4th.
Well, that's
of
anniversary's coming up.
That's right.
And here you are.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I came through that surgery very well. I was in my 5th week of chemotherapy, rehab, cardio rehab, and I came down with pneumonia again.
Oh, dear heart.
Ended up in the hospital, and that brought on what they call a cardiogenic shock, and that damaged my heart.
Oh, my.
So anyway, after attempting to live by myself and with the help of my family, especially my brother, I realized that I needed to have more care than I was receiving there, and that I couldn't just keep depending on other people to take care of me there. You know, they had their lives. So that's when, with great discernment of my,
It was difficult.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I made that decision.
Yes.
But it's been the right decision. Since I arrived here, I've had what they call an ICD heart device placed in my heart, and it is really working well. I have a normal heart rate now, and I have more energy.
Oh,
so,
congratulations.
yes, I'm very happy about
Yes.
that.
You must have a good doctor then.
Excellent doctor, yeah, at U of M.
U of M. Oh. Well, what a story. It began with your heart and ends with your heart.
Yes, it does.
Not ends.
No.
It goes on. But I do know you have a big heart, a generous heart.
Thank you.
When you think of the ministry that you've done. And you grace us with your presence here, Maria.
Thank you.
And do things that only God knows and can see, because you sneak around and help so many. I don't mean sneak around, but you help so many in so many different ways. Before we leave, who would you say in your lifetime now stands out as one of the greatest mentors or inspirations in your life? Besides your mother, she had to be the
My
key.
grandmother would be one of them, because I spent a lot of summers with her. She taught me how to say the rosary, and I just had a very special relationship with her. Another would be Jean O'Loughlin, who really called us forth to embrace leadership in a new way, ministerial leadership. But I have to honestly say Pope John the 23rd, when he opened Vatican II, that gave me so much hope for the church, and I began to see how it was influencing the communities in parishes, and how they were then invited into ministry. And I've always felt that one of the strongest things we can do is empower the people to take their rightful role as a result of their baptism to serve in some capacity. So I would say John the 23rd is another one. And he only lived a few years, but he had a powerful impact on the world and the church. And as a young sister at that age, I thought he was next to God.
Yes. It was an exciting time.
It was an exciting
very
time.
exciting time.
Talk about breaking ground.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today,
welcome.
and blessings
Thank you.
on the rest of the day.
Thank you.